Hi guys, we're going to begin. So thank you for being here for another talk with Le Wagon. So I don't know if you've been here before, and if you have, I'm sorry, I'm going to do the same presentation. But so Le Wagon is a coding school. So we teach people how to code. So within 9 weeks with us, you essentially learn how to build a full-fledged web product. So like I actually was a student of Le Wagon myself, and I didn't know anything about coding. I could only write like maybe some HTML and CSS. And I went through the course, and now I'm actually coding for Le Wagon and occasionally doing talks like this with successful entrepreneurs of the London tech ecosystem. So tonight we're here with Julien, so thank you for being here with us. And Julien is the co-founder of Made.com, so maybe let's sit down. So not so long ago in The Guardian, your co-founder, Ning Li, wrote something like, we want to be the next IKEA. So can you maybe tell us more about what Made.com is and what's your positioning and what makes you different from your competitors?
Okay. That you're actually starting with the worst question. No, it's a good one, but we have a debate on positioning ourselves against IKEA, by the way. As IKEA was and is still, I think, one of the best things that happened to the furniture industry in like a lot of years. We'd love to be their size and as innovative as they are, and we're trying to, but we're slightly an upgrade from IKEA, so it's always a bit risky to do it in the press. What we tried to do when we launched Made in 2010 was to address one simple need from the customer point of view, and we were kind of our first customers, which was that at that time, if you wanted to buy something that was an upgrade from IKEA or something that had a bit of personality and was a bit qualitative, that was quickly very, very expensive. So if you wanted to buy a coffee table, just for your flat and you didn't care, you could buy the IKEA 19 pounds coffee table, and that was very efficient and very functional. But as soon as you wanted something nicer, you had a lot of crap, sorry for the word, that everybody was making, all the lower end retailers. Nothing was very original and it was not very high end. And if you wanted something slightly higher, that was very quickly very expensive. Knowing from our background a bit how the furniture industry was working, we knew that there was a lot of margin there between the price you were paying in a factory for a sofa, for instance. Let's say that this sofa could be bought, something slightly nicer could be bought in a factory for $150, and it was being retailed in the high street stores in the UK for £900. The worst part in that is, so that was due to the way the industry was working on pre-buying stuff, on the inventory, and a lot of people were involved in the process. And the worst part was that nobody was making money, to be fair. At that time, all the wholesalers were going bust, importers were struggling. The retail industry, for the furniture industry, was struggling too. It's not like all these guys were taking their cut and screwing the customer. It's just like the way it was working didn't work too much. So we just looked at a different approach, using the web on the fact of selling everything online, on a bit of a different supply chain model, on the different product design model to make nicer products, a bit more qualitative with better raw materials that would cost more in the factory, still very affordable for the customer. On roughly half the price they would have to be retailed for, with the same kind of supply chain as the industry was working on. And we started, so we were 4 co-founders, including 3 working in the company. My co-founders Ning and Chloe. And the last one was called Brent Hoberman, actually the first one, because he made the first phone call to put the team together. We got together in December 2009, started with calling a designer who had a blog. He was an Italian designer in Roma, I think. No, in Venice. And he had a nice table we liked. We called him, got him for an internship in London, hired somebody to help us with factory management, hired a CTO, head of creative, somebody to write the website, to do copywriting, and we launched the website pretty quickly, actually, in March 2010. on the 21st with, it was selling an amazing quantity of products. We were selling 2 items. We were selling 1 table on a pair of chairs. But we didn't care too much because the story was, you're gonna get great design, super affordable, super nice. By the way, the tweak is you're gonna have to wait because we gonna pre-sell it to you. We're gonna group all the orders because it's amazing product, it's super beautiful and it's cheap, so you're gonna be thousands of people ordering it. And I'm gonna place my order at the end of the week to the factory. They're gonna make it, it's gonna take 8 weeks, 4 weeks of shipping, 2 weeks of like buffer. You're gonna get it in 14 weeks, but you don't care because you like the story and we're a cool company. So that's how we started. A few things worked pretty well, and we had to tweak a few other things. That's how we went. We had 2 products the first week. After 2 weeks, we had 4. We had a table, 2 chairs on the 2 coffee tables, and then a week after it was a table, 2 chairs, 2 coffee tables, and 5 lamps on it. We built a catalog from that to now roughly 4,000 products. We got from a team. I'm skipping all the middle on purpose and get to the end so that you have questions and you can ask what you want. It's never been like that. It went quite like that. But now Made is from a company of like 4, 10 when we launched on 2 products, only online, only in the UK. It's now company of 350 people, retailing in 6 countries in Europe. Turning over last year 100 million, roughly, growing 40% per year still. I was going to say per month, which is stupid. With a catalog of 3,000 to 4,000 products, which is the key thing for us. We're working with 30-ish factories. We've been collaborating with 60 plus designers. We have like a core of 30 plus designers we're working with on a very regular basis. On everything we retail now, you have available on the website is something that has been designed either in-house or in collaboration with external designers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, everything we have here is actually IKEA, so.
Don't worry.
But yeah, so maybe I'll go chronologically, even though it's kind of boring, but we can go around and fast forward, whatever, we'll see. But so you said, so Brent Hoberman made the call to put you all 3 together. Is that, so how did that happen? Like, did you know him? What were you doing before? And like, what made you like say, yes, I want to go ahead and build a furniture retailer company? Yeah.
So I was born in I did business school, so which was great, but at the same time was not so great because you can do kind of anything afterwards, and then you don't know what you do on most of the people doing it, including by chance, maybe not myself, but you end up doing things, and then you're like, what the fuck am I doing? I did business school. I ended up doing the last year specializing in entrepreneurship, which means, by the way, nothing. The only thing that was good is that was very practical, a lot of missions dealing with companies and working with entrepreneurs. And the other thing that did is from somebody who didn't want to create a company, it's not that I didn't want it, but I was not one of those guys who at 8 years old wanted to build something, and at 14 I was selling like glasses or stuff like this. I ended up there by mistake, but after that I couldn't work in a traditional business anymore. I think the 2 things that got me to work on to launch something with people was the first thing was to be kind of your own boss. That's one part, and the big thing was to make a change. On what we tried to do when we launched Made was to change an industry. That's more motivating than doing something. If you don't have a passion for like music or clothes or something, that was the motivation. Ning was a friend from business school. Okay. Ning had launched a company quite similar before, which we almost worked on together, but I knew quite well how they were doing it. And he had exited. On Brent was the founder of lastminute.com and had then another company called mydeco.com, which was in the furniture industry, was more of they had different businesses, but I think they were looking into tapping into direct e-commerce sales business, something more tangible. It was more of a community, a search engine on stuff like this in the past. Chloe was working with Brent at that time.
Okay, yeah. And just for those of you guys who don't know who Brent Oberman is, he's the co-founder of lastminute.com, and he's also the co-founder of a network of really successful entrepreneurs, which is called Founders Forum. So he's quite a figure here in the tech London scene. So, so maybe to go back then to what happened in between. I'm going to be interested in the like up and downs at made.com. So right now it's a very successful company, but I guess you had quite a few challenges. So maybe you can tell us about those. So like maybe challenges with your co-founders potentially, and also just rebuilding the entire way a supply chain works is actually something that's super interesting and I guess extremely hard. So, or maybe not. But
okay, so
yeah, a lot of questions in this question.
Yeah, it's a few ones. The supply chain looks like the most scary thing to some people, but to be fair, it's much more scary than it's complicated. Or maybe I'm a bit biased, but we innovated in the way we were doing stuff, in the way we tweaked it afterwards, but that was not the most complicated part of the business. I think we just did it pretty well, and we also redesigned the way you develop product with designers and collaboration with designers on Diversity Factory. That was a big part. To be fair, the first issues appeared very quickly because we sold our first product in March. It was working amazingly well as we thought at the time, because we sold one product the first day, on the product the third day. Yeah, that's pretty cool. We were expecting PR. That's kind of pretty cool because we were expecting PR to make the company like a rocket, and actually PR is good. We had a good story, a good team, but we were not selling like hell. The first great time we had was I was actually sharing a flat with Ning at the very beginning, and we were usually waking up a bit late, but not as late at 10 as 10. And at that time at 10, I was still in bed, like checking my sales. And I didn't hear him in the shower, and I was believing he was doing the same thing because we were getting a sale every 10 minutes, which at that time was amazing. It's just that a blog had featured us, and we had an amazing day, and we thought that the next day would be the same, and actually no, but the peak goes down, and then you scale up a bit by bit. But we started dispatching our first item in July, and what could have been my best weekend ever, because we went to the warehouse we had, we labeled all the products, I labeled all the products, and we sent them through the delivery company. And I went back to the office. I had a very good friend coming to London before he was living for like 2 years in the US. And I stayed in the office until 11 anyway, because we realized that everything we labeled was labeled with wrong label that didn't work. And all our first 50 customers got no tracking on their delivery, no matter what we had told them. So everything was lost. Then we had issues with quality on the product. Few of them, the products were amazing, but the packaging of the sofa was not good enough. So for mail orders, so if people were like dropping it, legs were breaking. So the very beginning was a bit tough. It was good, but it was a bit tough. The good thing is, if you have a good story, and if you're trying to do good thing, and if you're making mistake, but you're in contact with the customer, in this case, on the delivery, we were very proactive because we knew as soon as somebody told us. On the quality, we didn't know, but we were very reactive. As soon as you're dealing with it, and you're showing that you're willing to improve, it's good. People used to say that your customer will always forgive you for one mistake, but they won't forgive you if you do it again. So you just have to show you're making it right. But then it grew quite well. At the end of 2010, we were a pretty good startup, not a big company yet. I remember our investors telling us that we had to be in the club of the company retailing for 500K a month, which by the way is still pretty big. And we're trading quite lower. We're increasing every month, but quite lower. On mid-2011, we had an amazing summer, and things grew pretty quickly for a few basic reasons. I mean, July is the month of sales in the UK. If you work in the furniture industry, your 2 big months are January and July, even though we're doing almost no sales. Just people are in a will to buy furniture. Secondly, we release great collections of product, and we might be an e-commerce company or a tech platform. At the end of the day, we are an e-commerce brand. So if you have shit products, you don't sell, and if you have good products, you convert well. And the third thing is, I think at that time we kicked the ass of our marketing agency. Marketing agency are very useful, but can debate it. At the end of the day, you always need to be on their back to ensure that they're allowing, putting enough resource on your account. So started working pretty well. We even doubled the monthly sales between October 2011 and December 2011, and we doubled again between December and January. So we did 4 times in 3 months, and everybody was very happy until everything broke suddenly. January, all the delivery companies were getting too much volume through their business. The one we were using, few customers were telling us that it was average, especially for big items. Well, like it's okay, we had 1, 2, 3 issues, but when you have 3 issues multiplied by 4 times every month, on days start screwing up, on losing your product, becomes a problem. If you add to that you have too much sales and too much queries from customers by email, you can't even answer everything straight away. We had been procrastinating regarding putting a phone number on the website because we didn't really know how to deal with it, and it was supposed to go live in February, but that was too late. It's always a bit too late. The worst thing is we were putting everything we thought was necessary or more than necessary in customer service. That was the terrible thing is the team we were celebrating was customer service. We thought we were ahead of the game, and we were actually a bit late. And everything exploded. The blog that when we launched said we were an amazing company was writing that we're a crap company. We made a few mistakes in how we were dealing with customer complaints. And when things go wrong, they always go wrong together. So we spent 5 months rebuilding things. We stopped spending so much more in marketing, still growing. We didn't do that. We were growing, but less fast. As we were in a rush, I hired 2 guys to help my operation manager in the UK. Had one guy do logistics and another lady doing customer service, and they had like 15 years of experience. They seemed amazing on their CV. We saw them twice both, and we had amazing reviews from their past employers, on reviews on the paper, and we screwed up on the 2 recruitments. Never believe what a recruitment company is sending you as a written, how do you call that, recommendation? Yep. I'd never do that. Oh, we screwed up on that, and it took 6 months to rebuild things. It went so wrong at some point with the delivery company before we managed to extract most of our business from them that everything that was going through their hub in May, the London hub, so 50% of the business was getting lost. But lost like, not lost like there is no tracking, lost like it never goes to the customer because it doesn't even go through their system. Do you know how that worked? But I got to a point where I had actually to call. You have to think a bit out of the box, but it's a bit desperate. And I was like, shit, how do we do that? We're gonna actually, Addisonly had a service where you can actually send a big thing to somewhere else. And I called Addisonly and said, if I actually bring big trucks of items to central London, or my customer service is calling customers to book appointments, can you come with can we have a deal on all your vans are coming to that point and you are actually delivering sofas to the places? And they obviously said no. So it took us a bit of time to make things right, but after a while it was working pretty good.
So did you find a good delivery company in the end, or did you change altogether, or what? No,
we found a good, very small company.
Yeah. Okay.
To only do London because London was the worst part. They were pretty small. They were having a good service. They were willing to service for not too expensive. The issue we have in our business is when you're selling a sofa for £500 instead of 1,000, customers already don't want to pay £100 for delivery for a £1,000 sofa, but they really don't want to pay £100 delivery. And that's the cost of a delivery most of the time for a £500 sofa. So when expensive companies can factor it in the product price, for us it's a drop in price in 20%. So you can't be working with the very white glove companies. We had to find a very good quality small company. It took time. And to work with them in improving their service on the geography they could work on. Yeah.
And so you spoke about how you had a lot of problems at some point with your customers, with your customer service and that blog. who said you were great, at some point said that you were a shitty company because you had all those problems. How do you deal with a sudden drop in reputation when you're a brand, and when your brand is actually important for your business and your sales?
The thing is, I don't know. I'm not sure I ever know whether it was a huge big deal or a deal still. I think you make it a huge deal. It could have been a very huge deal. The first thing we did is we drafted an answer on the blog saying that we screwed up and we grew too fast, which was true. Yeah. We grew too fast. We were trying to fulfill customer needs and be ahead of the game, and actually we failed. Yeah. We were late on a few things, and the service is improving, and we're doing our best to service it. The second thing we did was, luckily we had raised quite a bit of cash. We raised 2.5 million on the paper at the very beginning, which at the time was quite rare. We had to raise a lot of money because we do a lot of different businesses. We have design, supply, quality, retail, customer service, on tech. But we were spending the marketing quite, how do you say, stingy? We didn't like to spend the money. So we could still kind of throw money on the problem when an issue was appearing. So if you had a delivery issue at that time, we were refunding delivery. So that's the first thing. So you refund the customers, you deal with the customers who actually want the delivery for free on the item too, and by the way, they're gonna call everybody and kill you. But that's still an issue, because I had a customer once, her product was late by 2 weeks. It was actually the second batch of product. I was in the airport going to China, so I took the call, and she was on the phone for an hour telling me how bad we were, and I was like, the most I can do, I remember at the time, was like, we're gonna refund the delivery, I can cancel the order, I'm gonna give you, I think at that time we gave a 50% voucher.
Free so
but and she could, for next purchase, and she was yelling at me, and she could still cancel. And that's hard stuff to deal with, because there is nothing much you can do. And at some point you're just like, I need to, but you can't. You can't, so you just take the hit. And I have no solution for that.
Did you miss your flight?
No, I didn't miss my flight. It started in the taxi, actually. And so the second thing you do is you throw some other kind of money on the fire, which is we recruited more customer service agents. So you deal with issues with volume first. So you try to deal with the fire, and then at the same time, or later, depending on how much brand new resource you have left, or usually entrepreneurs don't have any, because you have to deal with the day-to-day all the time. That's always the issue. At the same time, you try to solve the problem in the long term. And an example of not having enough time to do that was recruiting 2 wrong people to deal with the issue. But we just had to do it.
Yeah, but recruitment is key then in this case, because as you're saying, your brain space gets smaller and smaller as you have more shit to deal with. So you need people to kind of help you deal with all that. So
I think the 3 key things were, recruitment was key, anticipation is key, and seriously we thought we were anticipating a lot, but thinking again, the debate on having a phone number on the website or not, we had it since day one, and that was almost after 2 years, so we could have done it, but at the time we had no issue dealing with emails. Emails were answered within 2 hours. Mid-February, they took 3 days to answer an email. So if you're emailing me telling me the delivery is not here, should I stay at home? Well, I'm answering you in 3 days. That just doesn't work, but the phone number would have helped. And the third thing was, what did I say? The third thing is listen to your customers. The issue on the delivery company on how we could have tweaked a bit the business or solved some stuff was raised by customers a few times. Not like 2 million times, but a few times. And it's actually the biggest advice I can give now in any part of the business to avoid issues, to grow, to change, to develop new services. The people who know what you should do, you should stop trying to reinvent the wheel and think you know everything. And by the way, your customers don't know they want that, but they want that. Most of what they want is in what they ask you. Yep. And you can actually trigger that. What we did since day one, I think, or 2 months into the business, is we sent emails to the customer to ask for feedback. It has a lot of good things in it. The first thing is, if your customer is happy, you get happy feedback. And it's really good for the team. And actually, you can, if you use it well, you can publish it. Secondly, if your customer is unhappy, you have 2 positive points. The first thing is they complain to you rather than complaining to Facebook. And please, when you have a negative comment on Facebook, forget answering it and then erasing it after 2 days, because we did it once and that's terrible. And the third thing is they give you insight on how to improve. And that's really super valuable.
Yeah. My next question is going to be more about working with China. So I don't know if anyone here is working on a hardware company or maybe just like a manufacturing company. And so how do you build networks in China? So I believe maybe your co-founder had contacts there. So or maybe not, but how do you do this? It seems very daunting to a lot of companies.
But yeah, we had a few contacts. Ning had worked in the industry before, and I had worked in the industry before. I think we reused maybe 2 of the factories we had worked with in the past, so not much more. Okay. The thing which I still don't understand is there is no way of knowing which who are all the factories doing what in which country. I mean, a lot of people know Alibaba now, this huge group in China, and they started as being an how do you say, an annuaire?
Phone book, yeah, great,
thank
you.
Huh? Yeah, a yellow page for like factories in China, where they were factories were displaying what they were selling, what price, and you could contact them. First of all, I think using it was pretty crappy, and there is nothing like that in Europe. We source 50% in Europe roughly, and 50% in Asia. So there is no magic way of knowing which factory you want to deal with. I mean, you had a bit of like online research. You have a bit of like going to fairs. The best was to use the contacts of the people you work with. I mean, if you have somebody in your team who has worked with factories, they know factories which are reliable and they have been working with. It's half a problem of working with a reliable factory and half a problem of working with the right factory for your size, because the factory might be very reliable but too big for you or too small for you. The first trip I did, and that was even before quitting I had quit my job, but that was before joining the team here in January 2010. In December 2009, I went to China for 2 weeks. We looked for factories, and then I went to the UK, and we found a UK sofa supplier, and you just try and find them. The biggest mistake to make is to place an order to a factory in a trade fair, not because they are bad factories, but because you don't know whether they're a good factory. The other mistake that a lot of people do is they try to go for the cheapest one. That looks good, but the right thing to do is to try and find a factory that works with other UK brands, in our case, because you need UK regulations, we need the UK fire retardant treatment, you need UK plugs, they need the CE stuff. They're going to tell you they do it. They can do it if they don't do it, sometimes. Most of the time they won't. They're still very professional, but sometimes they're going to tell you they're going to try. But you need to work with somebody who works with. We needed to work with factories that were working with big brands. That was the best way of doing it. Some of them we couldn't afford at the very beginning, too expensive. But it was not really a problem of price. It was a problem of volume. We had no volume. We're going to factories selling them our business plan, kind of, on telling them that it was not a problem, that other brands were going to buy. IKEA would buy like 100 containers at a time from them. What we would do would be to place orders every 2 weeks, and they would have a container every 2 weeks rather than 100 containers at a time, and they could plan their manufacturing capacity this way. And we were going to ramp up very well, and we had a company we knew that was doing the same thing. So you never lie, always take inspiration from stories that exist, and show them that you have a good future. But I mean, if you talk about China, I mean, the only difference between China and Europe, I would say, I mean, there are a few. The first thing is you can get the same quality in China that you get in the UK. By the way, the first quality issues we had were with the UK factory. Okay. It was not specially due to the factory. Most of the time, it's also due to the spec you give them. In this case, it was packaging. Chinese factory, if you pay the right price for the product, you're going to get a good quality. You might have a bit more of follow-up to do. Another issue is you have to buy bigger quantities because you have to ship them by containers. You can ship them by few pieces, but it's going to be much more expensive. Transport is going to be more costly, and it's going to break in transit. It takes time to come. So on average, it's going to be slightly cheaper, 20 to 30% for the same product, even with the currency effect, which is also a risk. But it's going to take time, and you have to buy bigger volumes. It also takes time to find the factory, and assess it, on the culture difference on the language barrier makes it more complicated to deal with them.
Yeah, how did you deal with this? Do you have a translator when you go and actually,
Yeah, so the team in China, they're all technical about the product. They know how to source, but a big part of their job, not part of their job, but a big part of the added value they have, not that's, you shouldn't take it the wrong way, but it's the language thing. They speak Chinese. Plus, they are good in their job. Plus, they know how to deal with the business, and they are super skilled. But if you put a very skilled person who doesn't speak Chinese, it doesn't work. So now we had translators who were not only translators.
Okay.
And they were on the same time zone also. If we were working with China from here, you have 3 hours a day to deal with them. Or you have to wake up at 5 if you build your company and you wake up at 5, you might be lucky and be good at 5. I'm really shit at 5 a.m. But yeah, you can't do it too long.
Okay. So now my question is going to be about the future. So you have a company which is called Amazon, which is kind of eating away a lot of market share in any sector of e-commerce. So how do you, as Made.com or any e-commerce business, do you deal with that huge risk that Amazon may actually move into your specific segment?
It's a very good question, not only for us, but for all the companies working online, especially. Even though, I mean, we're not only an online company anymore. Amazon is not only an online company anymore. I think the main thing that helps us, on the key thing when you try to sell online, is to have a brand. If we were selling Nikes or Converse, or if I was Zappos, but Zappos, now okay. Amazon there. If we were selling items that anybody could sell, I don't know how we can compete against Amazon. They have the volume, they have the branding, they're gonna kill you on the prices. So even if you forget Amazon, if you try to retail items that other people can retail, the issue on internet is that everybody's gonna compare the prices, so you're gonna enter a price war. And the problem here is, and that's an issue we have with e-commerce on all those companies willing to spend that much cash in growing super fast on all the cash on the market. You have so many people who think first that selling online should be cheaper than offline, which is wrong because marketing is very expensive, who are willing to spend a lot of money to grow to 100 million sales in like 3 years. Well, honestly, that should take 20 years. And that's not a problem. And so many companies that are going to do that, even though they're going to go bust, that you're going to have to decrease your price, and you're going to go bust too. It's a bit dramatic, but I wouldn't do pure retail online, because these guys are extremely good. Or you do it a different way, which I don't know. So we have a brand. So our products are unique to us, so you can find products which are similar somewhere else. The value added we have in the way we design them, and build them, and supply them, makes that the cost for us is cheaper than a lot of other people, and we can work on smaller margins. So those two things make it slightly easier to compete with Amazon. I don't think they're in the same. We are, or they're in the same game. It's different targets.
Okay, got it. Okay, so positioning is different, and you have a brand.
We're a brand. The brand it's in two things: in the fact that we have our own products. Yeah. You can't find them on Amazon. And the second thing is, we are not only a retailer, we're a designer and manufacturer, so we integrate everything. The day Amazon decides to, or somebody else decides to start acquiring factories, hiring designers, on building a supply chain, on building a brand on the high end, because in people's mind they're still, it's not low end. They're a volume business on the price business. Yeah, we're gonna be in trouble, but I think we have a bit of room to grow.
Okay, cool. It will be my last question, and then I will open questions to the audience. What about you? So you don't work for Made.com anymore, I believe. So what are your next plans? What are you doing now? So what do you have in mind for you?
It's a good question. So we were lucky enough to have made a very good call in the last 3-4 years. We started hiring a very good management team. We have a MD, the CEO now, who had been with us for like 4 years. On the team is doing an amazing job. So I'm going to talk about myself. I had the luxury that doesn't happen very often, I think, to be able to step out of the day-to-day job. I'm still a shareholder of the company, and do something else. It takes a bit of time to do that, even though it's exciting because I can do something very different on possibly that has nothing to do with e-commerce or furniture. It's exciting, and that's something I wanted to do. At the same time, it takes a bit of time to cut the link. Actually, the link is not cut at all. I'm in the office every week. On what's next, I've been traveling for, it's been 9 months now. I came back from Iran, which was the last country, a month ago. So I'm looking into new projects, which could be mainly, I'm looking at different industry, would be, I love the education industry, and I think we could do a lot of good stuff in education, and it's not been disrupted too much yet because there doesn't seem to be enough money to be made, so not enough people are going for it. I'm looking into sports, and I'm looking into medtech, but I can bet you at the end of the day I might do something very different.
Yeah, I mean, here at Le Wagon, we totally agree that there is something to be done in the education industry, so maybe look into this. So I'll open the questions now, so feel free to ask your questions. Amal, yeah.
So 2 questions on Make.com. The first one on Amazon, it is a risk, but at the same time, it's an opportunity because if I don't know the brand and I go on Amazon to find some furniture and Make.com is on Amazon, then it's a chance to get to know it. Yeah. And if it's priced slightly higher to offset for the margins, then if I check the website, I would make the order on the website of Made. So why don't you consider like Amazon as an opportunity, as like a marketplace? And this is what many retailers are doing. Like they're using Amazon to grow their brand. And the second one, who are the competitors of Made?
Okay, so Amazon. So we thought about it. Let's say we thought about it in the UK first, and then we thought about it in like launching new countries. If you launch a new country, you have 2 issues. The first one is your brand. Selling on Amazon could be seen as diminishing your brand in some ways, or then being a bit stuck with Amazon driving most of your sales. But we still thought about it in countries like Germany, where Amazon is really big on a lot of retailers, even more than in the UK, are selling through there. I think we wouldn't have made that call anyway, just because we wanted to be the one point of contact for everything. Second issue, actually, there are 3, or complexity of integrating the systems. Due to the fact that everything we sell is not sold with like a fixed lead time. The lead time we promise you on the product page is always the right one, but that lead time is gonna change depending on the inventory available in the next batch coming or in the warehouse. So let's say if I have a lamp, the lamp you're willing to buy in the warehouse, and then only 1, and then 2 coming available in the next batch, and then maybe 5. You're gonna see on my product page on Made that I have 1 available, but if it's being bought by somebody right now on the same time, and they selected it and they put it in your basket, the next person visiting the page is gonna see next batch 2 weeks lead time. Integrating those information on inventory, between your inventory on Amazon inventory, or between your inventory on your stores, is quite complicated. It's never real time. So that's one of the issues. Integration is one of the issues. And the last one is margin. We looked into it, but with margins we have, on the margin Amazon is asking for to do their delivery on inventory or only to take to do the sale, we couldn't do it. On the second question, our competitors, I'm trying to think of who is doing exactly the same thing. You have a few companies doing kind of exactly the same model, operating it a bit slightly differently, but they're a bit on, their market is a bit more niche or smaller in terms of volume. We've always looked at the competition as, we've always looked for competition at all the traditional retailers. We've people who hate us, because I can't say we have gone for their business because then they sue us for that, would have been Habitat, would have been John Lewis, some customers who would have been buying, or let's say this way, we are selling items to people who were buying from this kind of person because we think, I'm not saying, we're proposing nicer item at a better value. You could have people who would love to buy at Conrad or Hills but don't have the money to do that, and we're making this quality available for cheaper. But you also have people who were buying from IKEA because they didn't have the money to buy something more expensive, and we're making that more expensive items at roughly the same price. So it's kind of creating, we went right where you shouldn't go. We went for the middle market. It's not the middle market. You should never be in the middle, but I think we recreated it. We made middle quality items affordable and higher quality at the middle price. I'm not sure it makes sense, but on the other thing is the market was so huge. The market in the UK, when we launched, you had the biggest brand at launch was turning over, had 4% market share only. I'm talking of IKEA or Argos or people like, now they are bigger, but it was an extremely fragmented market. So if you're dealing with like a market of 4 people, you really have to position yourself and to compete against these guys. In a market like that, you really need to think about your value added and you improve it. Okay, you look at competition, but looking at your customer and your business, you can already improve quite a lot.
So roughly what market share is
You have a lot of different numbers when you look at how big the furniture industry is in the UK, and depending on what you included in it, flooring, blah 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 blah. If you say it's 100 million, and if you read, we might have made last year 100 million. If you say it's it's 10 billion, and we might have made 100 million. That's 1%. So still in the UK, it's growing quite fast.
Just used said 4% about
these guys, but now they're bigger. Huh? The market has been consolidating quite a lot. When we started, I can't remember the percentage, but a huge percentage of the market was made by very small companies. And that is very much the case in the UK. Then we launched in France, in Germany, in Switzerland. If you look at Switzerland, I don't remember very well, but we looked at it and it was like the top 3 players were doing 50%, and the top 8 were doing 80%. It's not the same numbers, but something like that, and that's much more scary. We have different way of looking at it. Either you're much better than these guys, and that's not scary. Either it's very scary because you have to. It's not fragmented enough to get in very easily.
Did you look at the US? Sorry.
Yeah, we've looked at the US since. So we raised money since day one. We had we had a board at the time of 7 people, including 3 of our main investors. The run was with three investors at the very beginning. And they raised the question of going to the UN since I think the first board. It's been coming every 2-3 boards now, a bit less. And then in the US, you also had like huge business model that were working very well, like Fab.com or One Kings Lane, on very different model. Flash sale, which I don't think works well for a non-branded industry. And we didn't go for a few reasons. And we then chose to go to France. First of all, we thought, and I think we were right in thinking we had a very complex business. And by the way, it was taking us time to master it and to do it well in the UK. So we do the job of a design company, an e-commerce company, a supply chain company, and a furniture company. And we have to master all the things. While a lot of people just launch a retail business or just a brand and they don't deal with retailing, that was quite hard to master. And then when we thought we were ready to launch in another country, actually we always thought we were not ready, and at some point we forced ourselves to say, okay, yes, we're going to go. We chose France because we were 3 French founders. It's 2 hours by Eurostar. It's the same time zone. And it's much easier to manage stuff. I mean, we went there. It's easier to find a delivery company, to find a warehouse, and all this kind of stuff. The US will always be in our mind. We might go, but for the moment, we decided to go first to France. Then we launched in Netherlands because we wanted to launch in Germany, but we were scared of Germany. Everybody's scared of Germany. Marketing is too expensive, competition is too high, you don't speak German, they don't like French or English. And you had big rocket internet companies there. So we went to Switzerland a bit because of that, procrastinating on learning. We knew the French market, we didn't know the German market, so we went to a market we didn't know, which was Netherlands. It was closer to France on items in mainland Europe or dispatched from France. We have 2 warehouses, one in the UK, one in France. So it's cheaper in terms of transit, and it's a smaller market, which we thought was easier to crack, because less big guys are going there less soon. So went to Netherlands, then we went to Germany. And the good news was that it was actually it's not easy, much less scary than we thought. We also thought that in the German market, the return rate, the big scary thing with the German market is if people return their items like 1% of the time in the UK, it's going to be 3% in Germany. So in retail, in fashion, if it's 10%, then it's 30% there. It's actually not that big for us, or not bigger than the UK.
On a technical side, what frameworks and databases did you use to set up your e-commerce site?
It was on Magento. So the website was in Magento, it's still on Magento. Then after 3-4 months, we decided that we couldn't keep managing our supply chains on containers, on dispatches, on orders on Excel, because my MacBook was crashing in every Eurostar trip. And I'm not kidding. It was crashing 5 times. I had like an Excel spreadsheet with, it's going to be dispatched, I'm going to allocate those products, and I was we're still telling our warehouse exactly what to dispatch on what day. Now it's automated and it's much better done, but then we realized that if the MacBook was crashing too much, there was no database anymore. And we built an ERP system based on an open ERP. It was called Open ERP at the time. It's called Odoo, I think now. And hired a consulting company to help us build the product. There was no back office or ERP product that we could buy off the shelf that was matching exactly our business, because we were pre-selling part of the product, but then some of the items were still arriving in the UK a bit unsold, because we were taking a bit of risk in inventory anyway to try and reduce lead time. So some were sold from inventory, some were pre-sold, and we had to find a way to tell our customers who were logging into their account when the item was coming. So we had to build something.
What percentage were you thinking ahead they were going to buy?
Now, the huge part of what, if not almost everything, of what arrives in the UK is sold when it hits the port. We on purpose decide to put some items on inventory, or you're going to find it for bestsellers, or or lights, or small items, or decorations. And I think the lead time at the beginning was 14 weeks on the promise. And now in the UK, it's on average, we might be promising 4 to 5 weeks on average, but it goes from 2 days to like 14 weeks. And we did on what was delivered when I left in January, that was like 3 to 4 weeks average, with a lot of products delivered like next day or within 5 days.
No.
Yes, Julien, yeah.
I just wondered if you'd thought about expanding, or maybe you've done this already, with lower volume runs of more exclusive products, and also maybe, if not, have you also maybe considered leveraging off your brand as a marketplace, similar to Etsy, for example?
Yes, we have. So the marketplace is a bit like the US market. we think about it every year. So every year when we think about the big things next year, it's always coming back on the table. One of the reasons why we haven't done it yet is because of the brand. We still want to be controlling everything. Okay, it's our products, it's our design. I think at some point it was because of margin, and we thought we wouldn't have good enough margins on marketplace. But I think we don't have huge margins, so you can have decent margin on a marketplace. We also thought that due to the way we were integrated with everything, we're super efficient in terms of value. So if you want to sell a sofa on a marketplace, the value is going to be less good because we have to take our margin. So that was one of the things. I don't remember the other reasons, but we were still thinking about it. It might make sense for new products we don't know how to make. For the moment, we're expanding categories by by doing it ourselves. So we launched a few years ago now a range for kids. We have bed linens, a textile range. A year ago we launched accessories for the kitchen. Now lifestyle products are coming, and they're already on the website. So we do it all ourselves. It takes much more time. I'm not saying a marketplace wouldn't be the right deal. It's a debate. On the second question was small batches. We thought about it too, but we are still a volume business. So I think small batches, if you go to a factory and you tell them, I'm going to design a new product with you, but I'm only going to buy 10 because it's cool, they are never going to make it. So you could do it with makers, maybe in the UK, local. So we thought about that. I think we had a few ranges like that. To make a lot of turnover with that, it's a second kind of operations we have to set up, which we haven't set up yet, and it's less disruptive to expand to new categories or to do new stuff, other stuff, than doing that. But it doesn't mean it wouldn't work.
Okay, we're going to take those 3 questions and then we'll close the questions. But I think, Julien, you're going to stay here for a couple minutes, so the conversation will be open. So yes, go ahead.
Can I just ask about funding? You said you had about 2.5 million funding to start with. How did you go about getting your funding?
So we were lucky to have a good setup. I say lucky because now I've been back to Paris a few times since then. And in Paris, I don't know in London because I've been away for a while. But in Paris, a lot of companies seems to be raising 1, 2, 3 million on the paper. Usually they have a good team anywhere. They have proven something. At the time, that was quite complicated. And we were lucky, really lucky to be able to do that for a few reasons. So we had the furniture market. Just online was a huge market which hadn't been disrupted yet. The furniture market itself is super huge. So the business model and the business plan we had, for good reasons, was very ambitious. Then what people look for is like security. I mean, they like your business because they look at you because you're attractive, and they give you money because they feel secure. My co-founder Ning had founded a business in France, which we knew and had been working on, a few of us together, but he founded it with other people that was doing exactly, at the time, kind of the same thing, and was working pretty well at that time. So you had amazing business model, something that was working in the country next to you, the guy who had done it, and Brent Haberman, who was here putting his brand on his
gravitas or
reputation into it. And that helped us raise money because you didn't have a lot of projects that were, it's even more true now, but there is a lot of cash in the market, to be fair. There is a lot of cash on the market. The problem when you do seed or when you raise money at seed, Series A, Series B, is the risk. Being willing to put money in a team you don't know, in a project you don't know whether it's going to be working, it's a huge risk. One of the reasons why you have more, I think, it's my view, you have more money going into it now, and I think there are even possibly too much money, is that people don't manage to make the money you can make elsewhere, on the stock market or on bonds, on everything. The returns are much smaller, so money is going to VC a bit more. But it was a story, it was a team, and that does help. When we raised, we had a website, I always forget that because we were kind of sure we were going to raise at that time before launching on hiring people, but we still took the risk of hiring 10 guys, building a website, and going to China and paying for that cost. So we had a product though, even though the discussions were started before.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a classic chicken and egg problem at the outset. You have a few products and possibly no customers, and you need to get that flywheel going
Yeah.
at the outset. What was the single biggest thing that you did to unlock that momentum?
I think the answer is actually in the question, but the other way. I think there was not one thing, but true story. There was, when I say in July 2011, we did. There was good products, the sales, and we did better marketing. It's really that. Plus, at the same time, I think it had been a year and a half. We had been growing, and people were trusting us a bit more. I think on the there was not one single thing. You have to think a bit long run. How did it work? I'll take the question a bit with a different angle. A lot of people who tried to do the same thing, and that didn't help us raise our second and third round, which we still did, went bust. So you're gonna find a lot of French companies, German companies, and a few UK companies who went bust. Not all of them. And everybody was like, guys, they're all going bust. Why the hell are you? How are you different? So we could only guess. Some of those companies came to us. So we had their decks, their accounts, their P&L, and everything. So what I could guess from that was that when you were looking at their margin, their margin was much lower than our margin, even though their pricing on their website for equivalent items were higher. Secondly, they were struggling in ROI on marketing conversion. I'd say, I'm not selling it here, but I'd say I'd simplify it saying we were doing what we're saying in the fact that we were really designing items. We were not just saying it's easy in a factory to take the items that a designer that worked with the factory designed before and you sell it as a designer brand. We almost did some of that at the beginning. Didn't do. And when at the very beginning, we still had some items that we were finding in the factory and tweaking ourselves, but very quickly you have to design your own stuff and be unique. That's the one way of improving conversion. Otherwise, you fight on price. And I think from experience, as it's very hard to work with factories, not only in China, but in the UK and all that, people always go for the shortcut or the easy win. We really spent I was in China half of the time at that time, still managing the UK operations too. On Chloe on Ning we were just being into every single detail to get as much value as we could from the product. Then I think the brand helped, and that's mainly our creative director at the time, on Ning, who was really into it, on Chloe too. I'm less of a brand person, but they were crazy about single stuff on the website on how we should do things. And a lot of people ask us why we were not having backgrounds or shooting items in situ in houses, because that, by the way, gives you a better feeling of the product. We're no, it's going to be white background. So I think it created a brand. It's a bit of everything. And when we made mistakes, we just were pretty quick. Quick enough in making turns. I think so. There is no one thing. Sorry.
And last question, Amal.
3 questions. So apart from fundraising, what are the things that were made easier by having brand middleman on board? The second one, you mentioned all these mistakes which helped the company evolve and be better, but I guess when you have funds on board, they were not very happy seeing all these problems. How did you deal with them? What happens when you have funds on board and you have problems? Are they supportive, or how do you manage the relationship? And the third one, buying furniture is not a recurring purchase.
Yeah.
How do you manage the customer relationships after the purchase? For example, do you send them emails saying, hey, we added some categories, or
Okay.
Is it like one-off relationship where they purchase and they're happy and that's it?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer the last one first because I think it's the quickest. How do you call that? Repeat purchases is quite an issue in the furniture industry because you don't buy a sofa twice. So first you enlarge your quantity of categories on the depth of the categories. That's why we went into small items, accessories, decorations, even though the tickets are less big. Secondly, we sold very bad quality items so that they could buy again. I'm kidding. Secondly, no, it's an obvious mistake, joke. Secondly, what do? You can't harass your customer to get them to buy again. What you can do is to get them to recommend you to other customers. People who bought a sofa won't buy another sofa unless they have space for two. And you have to assess that, to expect that. So we do CRM, emailing, on all that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure we were doing it pretty well for a long time. Now we do it much better. But we send emails quite a few times a week, sometimes too often. But we try to target them as much as we can. But we are actually quite happy with the repeat rate we have in the furniture industry. But a repeat rate in the furniture industry is not like you don't buy 5 times a year on average. So you also have to do one thing, is you have to try and be profitable on your sale from day one. You can't be like, I'm going to lose money on the first purchase, on the second, because they're going to buy 20 times. Otherwise, you take too much risks. Brent Hoberman, Brent was, it's amazing to have him on board. He was there making the first phone call, so he got us together. Super well connected. Every time we had a question, an issue, something we had to deal with, somebody we needed, you email him, he puts you in contact with somebody who knows somebody who can help you on a consulting basis or on a full time, and he's extremely creative. He's got other qualities, but I won't go too long on that. The last one was on investors. I don't know whether we were lucky or whether most of them are like that. You always have issues, but it never happened that we had like a big confrontation. It happened that they were angry, and the only times it happened that they were angry was when, not on purpose, but you forget to tell them in anticipation that you have small issue. But seriously, the worst thing to do is to hide it. But you have so many things happening that, or you forget to see it too. So as long as with your investors you're transparent, and you're anticipating every issue, and you're communicating everything as often as possible, which we're not doing at the beginning, not because we didn't want to do it, but because sending an update email every week to an investor takes time, if it's not automated. Or at the very beginning, we're always sending the board deck the day before, which is stupid, because by the way, they read it in front of you and they have questions. It's just transparency. So if you're transparent and they know you're working because it's your baby and it's your money too, there is no reason why an investor should be yelling at you because the business is not going well. Because by the way, all the decisions you have made on a macro level for the company, you have made them together. As long as you're not doing anything behind their back or being an asshole or trying to steal cash, or not hiding anything, there should not be frictions. And I'm pretty sure it happens still, but we've been lucky not to have that. Seriously, communication is very, very key.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you, guys.